Okay, today I want to talk about a plant called Sempervivum, and translated that stands for or means always living. And that's a good name for this plant because it basically is a 365-day-a-year plant. It's evergreen and it can survive all the way down to zone 4 and can live in zones up to zone 9. Now, these plants were found somewhere, it's not really sure where the exact origin was, but a lot of the data says it was either Europe, Northern Africa, or somewhere in Western Asia. So it's in that region. So it grows in more temperate type climates. It is a succulent, but it can live in areas that get a lot of rain as long as it's in soil that drains very well. So what I've got here are Sempervivum that's growing on the south side of a house in zone 6B. And they do like sunlight. However, what I found, they prefer anywhere between 3 and 6 hours of sunlight. If you give them more than that, they don't do as well. They tend to shrivel up. So these will grow in a partial sun environment and also in a full sun environment, as long as it's not extreme sun where you're getting, maybe 8, 9, 10 hours of sun during the summertime. And here I've got two different varieties. You can see this one is more of a wine colored one, and this one is pure green. Now, you also know these plants probably most commonly by a name called Hens and Chicks. Now, that name, I think, does a lot of damage to the reputation of this plant because I don't think people take it seriously, and they really should. They grow and propagate very easily. You can see this one. This is the plant I bought last year, and off of this plant, it's probably produced at least 15 babies. And I'm going to show you, how to propagate one right now. I'm going to pull out one of these. It's growing up against the fence, and you can see it's got this offshoot or offset, this big kind of lead. I also call it like an umbilical cord. And all you got to do with these is I typically cut that cord off, and then I'll let it dry out for a day or so, and then I just stick it in a pot like this with well-drained soil. And the key is also putting pea gravel around these because they do not like to be immersed in water. So one of the keys for having successful Sempervivums or producing successful Sempervivums is to make sure that you keep them as dry as possible. And how I do that is with pea gravel, or in this case, with the larger plants, actually river rocks. So it's a great plant. It's very easy to grow. It's really pretty foolproof in terms of its capabilities and its applications. And last year, or actually 2 years ago, I planted 4 plants. So it was actually 2 years ago. I put these 2 wine-colored ones in and then 2 green ones. And this year, I harvested over 90 smaller plants. And I'll show you something that I did with one of the planters over here. You can see this planter I made has over 30 plants in it. And that was just from those 4 initial plants that I put in. Now, one thing I'll also show you is once they get 3 years old, typically around 3 years old, they will bloom. And you can see these plants here. A number of these are blooming, and they're really attractive for sweat bees. I think you might be able to see some of the sweat bees on there right now. They love the flowers on these plants, but once they bloom, they will die. So never buy one of these in a store if it's got blooms on it, because that plant's gonna die. But what will happen is once that dies, these other plants will take over as the lead plant. So you can see this one, there's 2 of them that are blooming and are about to die, but then you've got, a bunch of them here that are gonna take over. Same thing with this plant as well. Now, the wine ones I have haven't bloomed yet, but they will. As long as you provide it with the sunshine it needs and well-drained soil, and it's not sitting in water, this plant is going to thrive. So the Sempervivum, also known as Hens and Chicks, also known as the house leek. It's a plant that you definitely want to add to your garden.